Here.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
All right, folks, we're back with episode 8 of the STRS podcast. This week we're talking to a couple well-ranked players, especially from Season 3. We've got AutismSpeaks and Zampy with us, and the timing couldn't be better because Ranked Battles came out pretty much a week earlier than we thought it was going to come out, eh, Spectre?
Yeah, pretty much. People said there was some QA or whatever where someone said that it was going to start on the 10th, but, it started June 3rd instead.
Yep, so I pulled a few stats just for our listeners so they can they don't have to go and look it up, because I know I'm pretty lazy about looking stuff up. But if you go to the leaderboards for Season 3 at Ship Comrades, let's see. Autism, I had you ranking in at number 33 with a 68.28% win rate, which was pretty good. And then I pulled Zampy, so I was like, sweet, I'm glad you got that guy to come with you so that he could carry you a little bit with rank number 8 at 74.58.
I told you he's better than me.
But if you guys will take a little minute and tell us about yourselves, how long you've been playing the game, what brought you to Ships, any other games you kind of play, and we'll start with you, Autism.
Well, the first major game that I ever played online was World of Tanks. Started doing that right after the launch, kind of like what I did with Ships. And I did that for about 30,000 battles. Did all the clan war stuff and all that stuff. And it just about ran its course at the right time because I was getting tired of tanks. I was looking for something else, and a buddy of mine was playing Ships, and it just released. And he said, why don't you come over and try out Ships? And I said, okay, and here I am.
All right. Awesome. You're actually one of the few players I've met, at least in the small circle of people I happen to know, that actually came from World of Tanks. So maybe we'll have some follow-up stuff about that afterwards. But on to you, Zampy.
So I started my gaming career with Star Wars Galaxies. That was back in high school. A little bit of a emotional ending there when Sony decided to shut down. But as far as getting into like the online arena gaming area, I took a foray into Navy Field back during its beta days and was actually the winner of the first server clan wars there. Then after that, discovered World of Tanks a couple years later, played it for a couple thousand battles, did clan wars a little bit, not too seriously. I still hang out with the guys that I clanned with there, but as soon as I saw that the beta invites for World of Warships was up, I jumped all over that as fast as I could, as hard as I could, and then I've been playing that for, I think it's been a little over a year now. I got in right as the April Fool's event was starting, where they did space battleships. And man, I really wish they would make that a permanent game mode, because that was really fun.
You mean add it in like the training room or something?
Yeah, I think some kind of mod that would allow us to do that.
Yeah, leave the bath ducks in too. That was all right once in a while. So while I got you here, and we're talking about both of you being from World of Tanks, and Spectre, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you're the lurker on the forums. The Russian server, I believe it was, offered World of Tanks players a certain amount of free XP to come over. Was that right, Spectre?
Yeah, a while ago they offered a bunch of free XP and a bunch of credits for World of Tanks players to make the jump over to World of Warships.
So they didn't do that on the North American server, and I was just wondering how you guys, as former World of Tanks players, might feel about that.
Well, I think anything marketing-wise for the game that is basically free for wargaming would be a good thing. I think something like that would draw some people from the World of Tanks arena, and there's a lot of people over there, mainly because everybody likes something free and everybody's curious about stuff. So if you say, hey, come over here, we'll give you free XP, we'll give you free doubloons, we'll give you a jump start, we'll give you a free premium, a lot of people would come over. And not everybody would stay, but I'm sure some people would. So as a marketing strategy, I think it's a good one, and I think they should do.
Well, I mean, if it's only on the Russian server, you don't feel cheated?
They do things at Wargaming a little bit differently than other companies. I mean, most companies in this day and age recognize that the economy is global, and so they treat the globe equally. It seems that wargaming seems to pick and choose, and I think that's a reason for a lot of dissension, and you see that coming out in the forums. But then again, I don't work at wargaming and I don't run the show over there, so pretty much I let them do what they want to do, and if eventually it gets to a point where they make me mad enough, I won't play anymore. But it hasn't gotten to that point yet.
All right, you got any strong feelings on it, Zampy?
I think if they were to do it now, it'd be a good boost to server population, especially if they wanted to translate that over to the other regions around the globe. I don't feel personally either way about it. I don't think that I would feel like I missed out. And I think that doing it at the launch would have been a mistake, because then you are giving a clear advantage to some players that are coming over from one of Wargaming's historical games. But we've been live now for more than half a year. I think now would be fine. Not too many would be complaining about it.
I just want to gather your guys' thoughts with regard to the program. One of the reasons why Wargaming evidently stopped it or didn't roll it out to other servers was the results are pretty poor. It's not just a matter of there's a very poor conversion rate of World of Tanks players or World of Warships players, but I think one of the things they said was that they found that some of these players would take this free XP and free XP to like a tier 10 or whatever, and just basically go troll about in the game for a bit, and that sort of ruined the experience for some people. So if Wargaming were to do a similar program here in NA or any of the servers, what do you think they could do to maybe alleviate some of these concerns?
Well, the point that you make there, I don't think it's much different than if they sell tier 8 premium ships without any kind of restriction. I mean, you get the same kind of effect.
Yeah, the only difference is you have to have an investment. Somebody would have to invest 40 or 50 of their own dollars to get that, and then go if their sole purpose was just a troll. So I could see somebody coming over from tanks, they want to goof around. What I would recommend, if that's what their thought process was, is to roll it out like a lot of people do in giveaways and type stuff. Is make it like when you initially sign up, you get X. If you stay for 2 weeks, you get X. If you're here for 2 months, you get X. And then that way, over time, you get the same amount of freebie, but you don't just get a big bunch of XP dropped on you immediately, so that you can just, like you said, free XP to a very high level immediately and then go goof off.
Well, let's go back to something Zampy said, and it comes up a lot, and it kind of goes hand in hand with a bunch of other issues, which is the free-to-play or free-to-pay model, and we'll get into that when we start talking about ranked a little bit. But the notion that, hey, people can just buy a tier 8 and jump in and they can go do dumb stuff, and it kind of ruins the experience a little bit. I kind of wanted to touch on what we all fondly refer to as seal clubbing in the game right now, which is sort of supported by some of the team battle rollout in North America, where the data says, hey, tiers 5 through 7 is kind of where the sweet spot is for people in North America, and the number of games that people play in those realms. And so I don't know if it's a specific thing that really comes down to, all right, I bought a tier 8 premium ship, and now all those guys running around in Tirpitzes and Otagos make it much worse than it was before when it comes to player quality in those parts of the tier.
I think it has a very nominal effect. I don't think overall, it doesn't ruin my gameplay. I mean, you will see if you have a couple Tirpitzes on one team or a couple of Tagos on another team, a lot of times they will die first. They will be at the bottom of your board. But I don't think it skews the game. I don't think it ruins tier 8, tier 9 play as much as some people might claim. I think what ruins the higher tier play right now in World of Warships is, number one, lack of server population up there. And the reason why I think there's a lack of server population is because all of the problems with the matchmakers, short matchmakers, long queues, lopsided matchmaker, has gotten people to decide not to grind vigorously to get tier 10s. And there's really no reason to. I mean, everybody has talked about the clan wars, and I'm sure that'll come up at some point. But when there is clan wars, like here at Poseidon Syndicate, if you guys had clan wars and you needed tier 10 ships to play in clan wars, guys that are here would be grinding lines to get those ships that are needed for the clan wars fights. Because there are no clan wars, there's no reason for you to be forced to grind to tier 10. So if you're comfortable at 7, if you're comfortable at 8, if you enjoy that, that's what you're going to do. And I think a lot of people are stuck there having fun in the mid tiers, and there's really no reason for them to push forward.
Well, I don't know. Is it really tied to that, though? I mean, so if we polled in our channel now and we asked them, hey, why do you play these tiers and the incentive to grind? I understand that argument logically, but their first statement is always, oh, it's just more fun there. And what makes it more fun? Is it that you're beating up on people? Is it a quicker game? Do you feel like it's more forgiving when you make mistakes? I mean, I'm not so sure it's about the incentive to get to tier 10 necessarily, because, I mean, people who want those ships are going to go get those ships, and I play all the tiers, and I don't really see a significant difference in the quality of play between those. You'll have top end and you'll have bottom end all in the same match pretty much equally.
I feel it's a much different style of gameplay up at the top tier. You have battleships that sit there, usually in spawn because they have the range and the accuracy to do so, where they just point their nose towards the enemy and only use their front forward guns. And down in the lower tiers, and it starts to drop off around tier 8 when you get to North Carolina, where ships are still running around usually half, 3/4, full speed. There's still a lot more of the environment and the layout of the islands on the maps that you can utilize, and you can set up ambushes in order to kind of play to the map, where the high tiers are making sure that you don't get torpedo souped, or a carrier doesn't nuke you in one go, or a battleship doesn't delete you with 5 citadels immediately because you decided to turn 30 degrees to try to get around the island. There's just a lot more leeway in terms of available space, and maybe it's because the maps aren't big enough for the high tiers, where you can easily outdistance, a Yamato that's shooting you from 26 kilometers away.
I don't know. How about you, Spectre?
I mean, my take on it is I agree. At higher tiers, you do have this issue of battleships hanging way in the back, and I guess one of the problems with high tiers, everything is so much more powerful, right? The battleships, are peaking at their damage output. The carriers have ridiculous damage output. Your destroyers have torpedoes that are clocking in at like 20k a piece. But I mean, maybe it's just been a while since I played lower tiers, but I feel like a lot of these criticisms were still quite valid at the lower tiers. I remember when I first started playing the game, way back when, like in the middle of summer or something. People were complaining as much about Minakaze torpedoes as they do about Shimakaze torpedoes. Back in the day, to a new Mexico, I mean, taking a couple of Minakaze torpedoes is about as devastating as it is to a Yamato eating Shimakaze torpedoes. So I feel like maybe the two aren't as disparate as people think. Maybe it's just slightly more pronounced, just because you spent all this time grinding up to these high tier ships, and you discover things aren't what you expected them to be. But I do kind of want to get you guys' feedback on the idea of is it maybe it's something that tied with repair costs? Because I know when I was grinding the U.S. battleship line, once I hit tier 8 without a premium account, it became incredibly difficult to make money in the games and to sort of fund that IO that I was trying to get into. Do you think that has any any influence at all on people's decision making?
It has a huge effect. I mean, at least in my experience, you're right. Like when I went from tier 7 to tier 8, it was sticker shock, and I was having good games. And so and I have premium, so I had premium, and I was having good games. But when your ship is destroyed and you look at the repair bill and it's like 153,000 credits just to repair the ship, that's a substantial jump from tier 7. I think from 7 to 8 is probably the biggest jump of all. And I think to people who don't run premium and to people who might not be having really good games every time out, you're going to lose money. And it's going to be hard to continue to push, even if you want to push to tier 10. It's going to be hard to do that whenever you're losing money every game. I mean, how many Mermance games do you have to play in order to play 2 or 3 games at tier 8?
The same can be said about World of Tanks, though. It's the same model. You hit tier 8, and all of a sudden, if you don't run premium, you're breaking even if you have a good game. It's just the way that the financial model of the game is set up. I do agree that here the repair bills have been a bit steep in regards to that climb, that power creep at the high tiers. But I do think that there needs to be some kind of incentive for people to buy that premium count in order for the game to still function and run.
And I know it seems we've kind of gotten off topic, but it really, for me, is kind of setting the stage on the decisions they made that really bring us kind of full circle to the rank battle tiering structure and going back in, and here it is 6 to 7. And it looks like they kind of threw us a bone at the rank 1 with a few of those players who said, hey, when I get to rank 1, I still want to kind of participate in that. Oh, and I also want high tier stuff. So now they've got this tier 10 Super League, and it'd be interesting to see how that works out. But I pulled some stats, and of course, depends on where you pull them from. But where I pulled them from in Season 3, only 641 players hit rank 1. And only 3,335 played the ranked battle format. And so when you look at that, and you think about how weird tier 10 matchmaking is right now, and then you put it into a population of 640, I think that's going to be another one of those, hey, we really wanted it, but maybe we didn't really want it. Like the Steve Jobs kind of Apple model. You don't really want a keyboard with your iPad?
I mean, I think it'll boil down to what kind of rewards they give out for the tier 10 Super League, right?
Yes,
Because
and that hasn't been announced. So, and it seems like in wargaming fashion that it won't be announced until it's too late. Because by the time somebody actually gets to the Super League and they actually play a few games and they actually get rewards, then the other people that may not have been pushing as hard for rank 1 as maybe they would if they knew there were a lot of cool rewards up there, then it may be too late because the season will be coming to an end. And I agree, because we had this conversation the other day, Cap, that I don't think there's going to be enough people to populate it. And I think that the only way to get the Super League to be successful after a certain group of people rank out is to actually try and coordinate times to be on to actually play, because there's not going to be enough people. I mean, if you need 14 people to play a game and there's only 300 people, say, available on the entire server, how often are you going to have 14 of those 300 on at the same time?
Yeah, maybe it'll turn out to be a lot like the team battle thing. You get a window each night or every couple nights or something like that. I don't know. And it'd be interesting to see if the incentive model they have now, where you're going to get doubloons at rank 2 and at rank 1, whether that really impacts anything. I mean, we all in the circle we run in say it does, or we feel like it does, but I'm not so sure that the numbers are going to back it up.
I do think it's already helping the incentives that they've announced for the season of ranked. Just the queue times and the amount of people that I see playing ranked already for season 4 are much higher than the previous 3 seasons. I know, Autism, you mentioned having to coordinate times to play, and maybe doing a window like team battles would help with that. But that's what high ranked players had to do in season 1. And that's why there were only 9 people who ranked out in season 1, because there just wasn't that population to get enough games, and it just wasn't worth the amount of time investment to try to get that rank 1, especially for no rewards.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I stopped playing the first season. Like a few people who ranked out earlier were on 24/7 trying to play battles and coordinating on, I think it was on Curse Speak at the time. But after that, you couldn't get a game to save your life. There just wasn't enough people in those tierings to do it.
Tell you what, though, I'm still sad I missed out on that Kitakami.
Yeah,
miss out on much.
Those people are the only people who've gotten to really play the Kitakami since, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And even
those
since
9
then, they
guys
haven't
had
taken
it
away.
for a short time, but I watched a couple guys play it, and it's very, very underwhelming. Just imagine playing a Kuma with all those torpedoes at tier 10. You're very slow. your detectability is not very good. And as soon as people see you, they immediately run in the opposite direction. So you're not hitting anything.
Or shoot you.
Or shoot you and kill you. Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a person, and all of the guys I've watched were skilled players. I never saw a person have a good game in a Kitakami. I don't think I've ever seen a guy in a Kitakami get more than like 2 or 3 torpedo hits. It's just not a good ship.
I mean, I only came across it one time since closed beta, honestly, in a game, and it was underwhelming then. I don't even remember what changes they really made, but speaking of which, let's kind of get into the rank tiers here, and now that we've actually had a day or two of ranked battles, kind of talk about some of the breakdowns in the meta we've been seeing in the game so far over the last, 24 or 48 hours.
Well, before we get into that, why don't we get some feedback on what you guys think about the move back down to tier 7 for this season? Think it's a positive thing that we're at tier 7s? Like, how do you feel about the balance between tier 7 ships and tier 8 ships?
I feel good about it. It's definitely opened up the population for ranked battles. A lot more people can participate. And at tier 7, you don't have a single ship that has such an amount of carry power like we did with last season with the Benson. I know it's still very heavily destroyer based because of the domination mode and having to contest all of the cap circles. And with the introduction of the premium ships now into the tech tree, like Bliskavica, you're seeing a lot of those now come about. But overall, I think it's been a shift towards the positive.
I think that it does open it up for a few more people, and it does change it. I mean, because if you continue to do the same tiers with the same ships season after season after season, it gets stale. I mean, I love the Benson, but I was tired of the Benson, after ranked matches last time. So I think it's a good thing to switch it up. I think it freshens the gameplay. It does allow people to come in with more, that wouldn't have a tier 8, and it also gives you the option to try out new ships and new philosophies on maps.
And I'll admit here that I've been sitting on my Benson and my captain waiting for the next season of rank. I have not played the Fletcher because of that.
Oh, really? You haven't played the Fletcher at all?
No, I didn't want to transfer the captain over because I didn't want to have to pay the retraining cost when the next season of rank came out.
Oh, man. Now you've got an opportunity, though, because you're missing out. The Fletcher is a lot of fun.
The Fletcher is probably the best ship in the line. It's fantastic.
I know a lot of people who would agree with you on that point.
Well, I put off buying the gearing for like 4 months now because of the module and the turret issue, and we're kind of sidetracking for a second, but I haven't played it since then. And so have either of you played the gearing since the module change and the turret armor?
I've not played the gearing. I've not played the US, but I have played the Russians. And what used to happen in the Russian ships compared to what happens now is night and day. So I would assume that if the Russian turret change was made that much of a difference, the US is probably very similar.
The turret change to their health pool has been fantastic for a lot of the lower caliber guns.
All right. And for me, and I didn't see it, so I'm not sure if there was a constraint in there anywhere. I haven't seen any more than 2 battleships aside in the last 24 hours. So there's been a lot more cruisers and a lot more destroyers and a lot more low threat destroyers. Honestly, if I'm being honest, right? So have you guys seen any really stacked sides where it used to be last season you'd see 5 and 2 or 4 and 3 or something like that?
No, it's been fairly balanced. The most discrepancy I've seen is just one ship either way.
Yeah. I have been on some teams that have had 1 battleship and the other team has had 2. So that does happen, and it puts you at a disadvantage, but it's not unwinnable.
I definitely think cruisers have a much more vital role in this one, because again, at that lower tier, destroyers are much more susceptible to that cruiser fire.
I've seen Myokos and Art Myokos perform very well so far.
Hey, Spectre, have you played your carrier in rank this season? Or are you playing on battleships?
I have not. I was actually going to sort of ask the our guests here, like, what ships are you guys looking to carry you guys into rank 1 here? Like, what ships are you guys using?
I'm using the Bliskovica personally, but I've seen Saipans do very well. Um, the independent, or not the independents, the Ranger and the Hiryu, all I've seen have been going air superiority layout, so none of them have really been taking that strike layout, and I think that's hurting them a bit. With the smaller team sizes, I think that if they ran strike and were able to delete 1 or 2 ships early, that would definitely put their team at an advantage. But I'm personally comfortable just fighting with the destroyers, mainly because I don't trust my teammates to contest caps in their destroyers.
I think that based on what I've seen so far, I truly believe that the Saipan's overpowered for this meta. And if you run the 3 fighter, 1 dive bomber loadout, because you're capping the points, and destroyers are very valuable and very important here. And I actually saw a Saipan one-shot a destroyer on a cap earlier. And the reason he can do that is because the dive bombers actually, their auto drop is actually a manual drop. So all they have to do is click on the ship, and they're guaranteed to get the tiny circle over top of that destroyer. And there's nothing the destroyer can do. And he's going to get hit with multiple 1,000-pound bombs and either take half damage or full damage, potentially. Also, with the 3 fighter groups and their speed, they can zip across the map. And a Saipan can pretty much annihilate any one of the other 2, the Ranger or the Hiryu, that he's fighting against. And that's what I've actually seen in battle. So I think the Saipan's overpowered, but I'm not a CV player. As far as destroyers go, I think that initially I would say the Bliskovica was probably the best. I'm leaning more towards the Kiev now because of the guns. I just think the guns on the Kiev are much better. I mean, you get a lot of float out of the 120s versus the 130s. So the Bliskovica, you can't hit as much, and the rate of fire is slower. You're also a little bit slower of a ship. You're easier to hit. So if I had to pick, I would say the Kiev is probably the best of the bunch. But I personally I'm gonna grind my Anshan cap. So I'm gonna be running Anshan all season, but I wouldn't recommend somebody else do that.
Well, that kind of brings up 2 things that I've kind of noticed, which is, 1, CV sniping is back, which I found very unusual. That after all the drama from 8 and up, that, in hindsight, I'm not so sure that there shouldn't have been something about it here. But on the other hand, I haven't really noticed carriers in battle. I mean, they've been there a little bit, but they haven't really affected my life yet. And then the other one is Kiev players in this format playing like light cruisers and hiding in the back and not fighting destroyers, for the most part, will put your team at a disadvantage. And I think some of the Kiev players out there, while it's a great ship, are basically taking a destroyer out of the fight for their side if they're not trying to win the DD fight early. And it's not something that they're always used to, I don't think.
I think the Kiev is a little too fragile now because it's the smallest health pool of all the destroyers. And it just doesn't have the torpedoes for that alternate damage output. So it is just a small cruiser that gets spotted very far away, and it's not all that maneuverable, just has speed going for it.
So you can't discount the Kiev's torpedoes. I mean, it has 10 torpedoes with 4-kilometer range that are very fast. They're situational. You have to get into situations where you're coming around an island or where you ambush somebody, but the Kiev can annihilate a Tier 7 battleship if the Kiev puts itself in the right position. They're devastating torpedoes compared to what the Bliskovica has. You have the range with the Bliss, but the Kiev torpedoes, if you use them appropriately, are much better.
Well, so if we're looking at that, well, I mean, yes, that's true. But I think those are more exceptions to the rule of what you'll see happening. At least at rank 10 and above, I think you're going to continue to see Kiev players go, God, this ship sucks, or my damage is awesome, but I still lose because I'm shooting battleships the whole time.
Here's another question. What changed with the shift to Tier 7 that made Russian DDs viable? Because in previous seasons, I think one of the biggest reasons why the Tashkent wasn't terribly popular was because it was just so much more detectable than the Benson, which meant anytime you got close to a cap, the enemy team would just focus fire you down in a heartbeat. I believe the Kiev's detection range is also not that much better than, say, compared to the Mahan. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe
It's
I'm
much
getting my
worse than
facts
the
wrong.
Mahan.
Much worse, right?
It's much worse.
So the dynamic is still there. You're still going to get outspotted by U.S. and obviously Japanese DDs, and I mean, like you mentioned yourself, the Miyoku seems to be very popular at the moment. So what's changed in the thinking there?
I think it might just be the available options. I do think that Tier 7, all the destroyers are a little bit on equal footing in terms of their specific or designed roles. Kiev being the gunship, Mahan being jack of all trades. I've only seen one Hatsuharu in the games I've played so far, and then the Bliskovica is kind of like a mix between the Kiev and the Mahan. So just given that, I think players are a bit more free to choose which one they want to roll with, as long as you have that gunpower to fight over the caps.
I think that the reason why the Benson was so popular is because the Benson's detectability is slightly better than the Mahan's, fresh out of the box. So it already has a competitive surface detectability. Now, because it's a Tier 8, it can add a concealment module. Mahan cannot. So by adding a concealment module and having a 15-point commander with a concealment skill, you could get that down to 5.8. And when you're at a Benson with those guns at 5.8, you're wicked. The Mahan can't do that. The Mahan has an additional 10%. So it starts out at like 7.6. Even with a concealment captain, you can drop it down to about 7, potentially 6.8 once you throw camo on it. So you're looking at a whole kilometer of difference between the Benson and the Mahan. Now, when you're at 6.8 with a Mahan, would you rather be at 6.8 with a Mahan or somewhere in the same vicinity with a Kiev or a Bliskovica?
Yeah, the arcs on the other two are just so much better than the Mahans.
All right, so we can all agree the Hatsu, don't bring that to the fight. Which kind of leads to another question, right? Which is Tier 6 and 7. And I know you said you're going to bring the Anshan. I'd kind of like to hear what Zampy feels. When you see a couple Tier 6s show up in your fight, because that's all they have, and you've got, like a Mutsuki versus a Kiev or a Bliskovica, right? I mean, outside of, say, maybe the Fuso, you're really kind of pushing your luck.
I mean, I guess the question is, are there any Tier 6 ships that you'd be happy to see over, say, a Tier 7? Because I know off the top of my head, there's really nothing at Tier 6 that I prefer over Tier 7. I mean, I suppose the biggest one would be with the battleships. Do you take a 12-gun, 14-inch battleship, or do you take the 8-gun, 16-inch battleships?
For the battleships, I think it's fairly even, at least on the Japanese side of things. Fuso has its merits. The Nagato also has its merits. Personally, I think those two are on equal footing. I would much rather fight a New Mexico than I would a Colorado now at this point. Because Colorado's accuracy is phenomenal with the buffs that it received just a few patches ago.
I guess maybe I didn't state my question right. Is it comes down to, should it be Tier 6 and 7, or should it just be 7 because of some of the mismatches you get in there?
Well, I think that you have to play within the rules, and if they have decided to make it 6 and 7, they've decided to make it 5, 6. They want to have that range, then that's what you have to deal with. Now, ultimately, if you want to win, you want to have all 7s. However, as long as Matchmaker makes it even, then it's okay. I mean, if there's a Tier 6 or 2 Tier 6s on one team, and there's a Tier 6 or 2 Tier 6s on the other team, then nobody's at a disadvantage. Where you find a disadvantage is if there's 4 Tier 6s in queue and the matchmaker puts all 4 Tier 6s on one side and then the other side gets all 7s, that would not work. That would be bad. But if there's 4 in queue and it goes 2 and 2, each team is on equal footing as far as the tiers go. So I don't have a problem with that. But if the matchmaker continually skews it and gives one team an advantage, then that's not fair.
Discounting matchmaker discrepancies here, I think the power difference between 6 and 7 is a lot more minimal than if you were to do, say, 5 and 6. There's a substantial jump in power between 5 and 6, just due to the timing of the ships and their designs, than there would be from 6 to 7. So I think everyone's on a lot more equal footing there.
Well, so far we've got, I think, and I don't know, Spectre, you have to correct me, right? I think we're going to say the Saipan is probably the best CV to pick if you can do it, especially if you've got a 15-point captain.
I mean, without having actually played it myself, I can't say for certain. So far, I've only played the Nagato in my team battles, and I haven't really paid very close attention to the Air War. But I've been in games where the Saipan has completely rolled the other side, and I've also been in games where a Hiryu has completely ruined the Saipan's day. So not entirely sure there, but I mean, I can definitely see.
Error.
Well,
probably.
I'm leading up to something here. All right, and so DD wise, we can say, hey, the Bliss is probably vying for the top DD to pick. Is that fair to say, Zampy?
Just looking at the populations and the amount of Bliskoviches you see, yeah, I think it's definitely become a fan favorite.
All right, and so for BBs, we don't have a premium choice. So that brings us down to the cruisers. And if you're looking at the cruiser selection, I've really only seen 2 that matter, and I think it's because people's aversion to the Indy, and certainly I had an aversion to it until today, which is the AEP on the Indianapolis is ridiculous. If no one's tried that yet, it is absolutely ridiculous. And
Do not forget sonar. Sonar is ruining destroyers' days.
New radar.
Oh yeah, radar. Sorry.
Yeah. So if you want to take, I mean, the planes haven't been much of an issue. You can take hydroacoustic and radar with the Indianapolis, which is kind of ridiculous. But if you haven't just gone all AP in it, it is pretty ridiculous, especially with the range it gets, which has better range or at least comparable range to anything else you're going to find at the tier. And so I know there are a lot out there like, oh, no, the Miyoko is awesome. And frankly, I haven't been able to make it work for me. I appreciate guys who have been able to make it work. But that really comes down to 3 out of the 4 classes is only because of the one doesn't have a premium. They drop all premium ships for doubloons. Ranked battles come out. There's a lot of tier 7 choices. A lot of premium ships running the show.
I don't know if the Indianapolis is the premier cruiser to pick in ranked. I have seen a few, but the Indianapolis, despite what its port stats say about its armor, it still seems highly susceptible to just getting citadeled out of the water.
It is just like any other cruiser at that tier, though. Like it's no better or worse than any other cruiser at that tier. But go try the AP on it in a match, and then come back and give your opinion on that one.
Well, the thing with that is because in ranked battles the 7v7, it's a lot easier to keep an eye on, the various ships that might be shooting at you, and therefore it makes it a lot easier to angle properly.
Well, I mean, we are talking about this in the context of ranked battles.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And it's one thing in a 12v12 to say, if I angle towards ship A, I'm showing broadside to ship B. But, because, you can't keep track of everyone at all times. But in a 7v7, it's a great deal easier because, you can right off the bat say, okay, the DDs probably aren't going to be able to pen me. It just leaves the cruisers and battleships. Where are they? In any sensible team, they're generally clumped up. So as long as you're angled towards one of them, you're somewhat angled towards almost all of them. And that somewhat degrades the usefulness of AP, at least in cruisers. What I will say, though, is the biggest impact from, and the reason why I might agree with the idea that Miyoko is a premier cruiser is that the HE fire span from the Miyokos is crazy. It's
Go try it,
think
though.
like Otago's.
The turret rotation speed on the Miyoko is very slow, and even at the angle, and you'll find it, they always want to get all their guns in the fight. That much of an angle to get all your guns in the fight from Miyoko, and Indianapolis will still citadel you at that angle. It's happened every game today for me. Just trying it out, trying to do that.
That's just user error. That's not a problem with the ship. That's user error.
Yeah, I agree. Like when we're talking about this, I mean, you're a good player and you can make an Indianapolis work. You know, I just like any good player can take any ship that is subpar, that's underperforming, and make it work and say, "Wow, look what I did! I got 100,000 damage in a ranked match in Indianapolis." But the average guy is not going to do that. You know, so for the average guy, the best ship is the Mayoko because it gives you the options for great torpedoes. It gives you the options for good guns. It's got a nice health pool with a good rate of fire on 10 guns. It's hands down. I mean, it really should be a tier 8. It really should.
It was until they
Hey,
switched it
yeah.
up during beta.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically an Atago without a repair.
I don't know. I think I'm getting outvoted. I don't know. What's your vote, Zampy?
As a destroyer player, personally, I fear the Indianapolis.
Just because it brings the radar to the fight.
Yep. I can dodge torpedoes that the Miyoko fires into smoke, but I cannot get away from that radar.
So, I mean, I think, all right. Well, I think we're split on that one then. But I guess it goes to, I mean, what's your opinion on the premium ships kind of being the go-to ships for rank battles at this tier?
It's a little disappointing just because I would like to see the standard tech tree ships be the prominent features. But on the other hand, it is allowing more people to participate, so you get the benefit from that.
I would have to say, not that I'm an expert in all these fields, but just based on what I've seen, I would say the Saipan is the best CV. The Colorado is the best BB. The Mayoko for CA. And I personally think the Kiev. But you got to realize that the Kiev, you have to have a skill set to make the Kiev work. So that's not going to work for everybody. Personally, I like the Kiev. If you want to go with something that's a little easier to use, then the Bliss.
What are your picks, Spectre?
I haven't played CVs yet, but I would say probably Hiryu or Saipan. I will say that in my limited experience so far, I feel like the Hiryu is slightly stronger just because of the number of squadrons you can throw up into the air. For battleships, I have been using the Nagato, and it has been really working for me. And I think like so far, like almost 80% of the Tier 7 battleships have been Nagatos as well. I know that the Colorado's gotten a lot of buffs, but just the fact that you have, I think, like 1,600 more HP over the Colorado, like that just makes like a world of difference, in my opinion. Just being able to tank that alpha. In terms of cruisers, I know that I feared Miyoko in my battleships, just because I know if I see Indianapolis, I can just shoot at it and just like deal tons of damage to him and just scare him off. And as for destroyers, I actually haven't seen very many Kievs, but I do know that the Mahan and Buskovicas have been doing quite well. But I would have to give it to the Bliss.
All right. How many of you guys are actually under rank 10 right now?
I'm currently sitting at 11, just for lack of time.
I haven't played enough games yet.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I was just curious. Last season it seemed like a weird cutoff, right? As soon as you hit 10, the player base and the dynamic changed, and there was a little bit of I don't know if the other players couldn't make it past that hurdle or what it was, and I'm just curious if we're going to kind of see the same thing happen again this year, or this season. My guess is probably. And then the other part of that is, if you looked last season, there were people with a below 45% win rate that managed to rank out. I did a little checking. There's quite a handful of those. And now that you don't get the extra star when you rank up, I don't think we'll see anybody with less than 50% win rate ranking out.
Well, it's even
not
worse
possible,
than that, actually. From rank 10 to rank 5 now, you need 5 stars to advance. And from rank 5 to rank 1, you need 6 stars to advance.
It's going to be a bit of a grind.
Yep.
But I have been experiencing a few of those losses as top XP where you don't lose a star, and I think that is going to ease some of that pain.
Well, do you
Yes,
think
it does help.
do you think for some players they're like, well, I kind of see the writing on the wall, whether or not it is true or not. And they're like, I'm going to lose, so as long as I'm top, that's all that I care about in this battle, instead of necessarily trying to win the whole time. Do you think that's going to weigh on anybody?
I don't think so, because in order to get that top XP, you have to be doing all the things you need to be doing in order to try to win the match.
Yeah, the only thing that I could see potentially is like a battleship trying to hang further in the back to get off a few more salvos to try to do extra damage to push himself past somebody else. But as far as a destroyer player goes, like the only way that you can get points is to either do damage, kill ships, or cap points, and all of that stuff is going to help you win anyway. So, if the only thing I could see happening is this. Okay, say you're on North, and say I'm in the A cap, and I see their whole team pushing around, the B cap to our side, and I have a choice. I can either assist my team and try and help kill them off, or I can sneak behind them in cap B. Well, if I sneak behind them in cap B, I'm still helping my team because I'm taking points away from the other team. However, I'm taking my gun out of the fight, assisting my guys and keeping them alive. So in that one case, if I would stay back and try to keep them alive and help them, I might help us win by helping my team stay alive. And it may be selfish to go for the cap because I know there's a lot of points for getting the cap. But technically, either one of those things could help us win, depending on what happens.
If we were just using the standard battle mode, I think it'd be a bit more of an issue here. But since all the rank games are domination, they're all fought over those cap circles. I don't really think there's a way to game it.
Okay, well, I mean, if there's not a way to game it, do you think it should extend to maybe the top 2, top 3, or only the very top?
I would honestly say just the very top. Otherwise, you get into a situation where a loss isn't really a penalty.
I mean, first of all, I think this new system is great. I know it has saved me at least 1 star so far. But as a battleship player, I will say the minor gripe I have with it is that because capping rewards so freaking much, it's almost impossible to top a destroyer if you're in any other ship.
Unless the destroyers can't get to the caps because the other team does a good job defending them.
Right, there's that. But generally speaking, it's usually you get at least 1 cap, right?
I will agree with that.
At least. I personally would have liked to have seen a system where it's like they look at the scores of the team and doled out, decided from that who loses a star and who doesn't. Like, if your team, if you're a losing team, they are all hovering around like, 500, 600 points, but you've got, say, 2 players breaking 1K. Like, I would like to see both those players be rewarded with, not losing a star rather than just
the recommendation that we made. The recommendation we made was that if you're on the losing team and you have more than 1,000 base points, that you don't lose a star or you gain a star. And initially, that's what Wargaming came back with and said they were going to do. I mean, that's what the early league was. But then they changed that. Because I personally think, I don't care if there's 5 guys on the losing team. If 5 guys on the losing team have over 1,000 base XP, they did a heck of a lot to help their team win. Why should they lose a star? I don't think they should. They don't gain 1, but they don't lose 1 because they did enough. But in the current system, if the best guy on the losing team has 300 XP, he doesn't lose a star because he's number 1 on his team. And he could have done nothing. He could have been on a team of 6 AFKs. He's the only guy that shot, but yet he doesn't lose a star.
Just real quick there, I do want to say, if you're in a team where there's just 6 other people who are AFK, you really shouldn't be losing a star anyways.
Yeah.
Well, you understand my point.
I do, and I do agree. I do wish the system was slightly smarter than what it is right now.
Well, I know you got a hard stop, Zampy, if your 1 hour time limit here, and thanks for being with us. So if you could sum up for us what you've seen is the current meta for basically rank 10 and above.
Don't kick me out yet. I've still got 10 minutes.
I wanted to give you 10 minutes to talk.
Oh, I don't know if I can talk for that long. As for the meta for rank 10, It's a little hard to see right now, just because it has shifted so drastically in the past. Um, I think it's going to be a little different this time. I think you'll see a lot of continuation from that rank 12 and up, with 12 being that last unrevocable rank. And since you're not making that jump from tier 6 to tier 8, where you're still kind of staying in the same tier range for most of the season, I think it's going to be fairly continuous all the way up to rank 1. Of course, you're going to get the better players at the higher ranks sooner in the early part of the season, so you're going to have a bit more of a competitive mindset at that stage in the game. And it's going to be a little bit more of a tactical play. But I think as we kind of drift towards, the latter half of the season, give it 3 weeks or so, and some of those lower win rate players start making the higher ranks, I think you'll start to see it come down to more of just a smaller version, a smaller team size of the random battles. And of course, just depending on the time of night and the type of people that are playing, I've seen games that are very battleship heavy, other games that are very destroyer heavy, and then others that are fairly even. So I am excited about this season just to see how it does evolve and progress. I hope it doesn't devolve into World of Bliskoviches, as some of the early indications might point to. But overall, I think it's going to be a pretty good turnout. So.
Are you gonna? Do you think we're gonna see the disappearance of cruisers as we get down to either rank 10 and below or rank 5 and below, like we did last season, where you saw cruisers above that, but after that it was battleships and destroyers?
With the smaller cap circle sizes and the larger detection ranges of the destroyers, no, I think cruisers going to continue to have a part to play.
And so this season, are you going for win rate, or was last season just kind of, you weren't really trying for a win rate, you were just playing how you play?
I was trying for win rate last season, but that's mostly because there was a forum contest going on that gave away a Warspite.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same reason why I was concentrating on win rate as well.
So
Yep.
So this season, is it just about getting in and getting out for you then?
It's about getting those flags in that rank 1 camouflage, because I have ADD when it comes to this kind of game. I have to grind all the lines. I have to have all the ships. But the balloon reward's nice, and then also the reward of the USS Flint, that Oakland class cruiser, I think, is very appealing to me because I don't want to pay for an Atlanta.
Well, so that kind of brings up, that issue, right? So I know there are a lot of upset Fujin players when the Kamikaze R came out. And then I can imagine there's going to be a lot of upset people when the Atlanta freestyle comes out, right?
Well, it's not in Atlanta. I mean, there's you got a 16 gun broadside with an Atlanta. You only have a 14 gun broadside with the Flint. However, the Flint should have better AA, and that's kind of the Atlanta's thing. So there's a good chance that people could be butthurt about the Atlanta, not because it's a free one was given away, but because a free one was given away with better AA than what the Atlanta's known for.
I mean, but you can admit they're pretty similar, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the only difference. There's more AA on the Flint in place of the 2 wing turrets that basically give you the 16 gun broadside on each side. So basically what you have in the Flint is you have the 3 super firing turrets in front, the 3 super firing turrets in back. Those are your 12 guns, and that's all you have. You don't have the 2 wings. In place of that, you have extra AA. And the AA is substantially better than the Atlanta. If they put it in game the way that it was in history, you're going to have some pretty sick AA at tier 7.
I just want to say that I'm honestly not impressed by the Flint. I am not sold. The Atlanta's AA is incredible as it is already. And secondly, I mean, yeah, the Flint will probably boast more Bofors turrets, but the thing is, the 5-inch dual mounts that the Atlanta has benefits from the manual AA commander ability. The Bofors won't. And so if it weren't for the fact that they're giving out a bunch of doubloons and credits at rank 1, like I would seriously consider not ranking out this season and just wait and see what they give out next season or whatever.
I think I'll try to rank out every season that they publish. So and it's just those freebies, those rewards, and it keeps me interested in the game. It keeps it dynamic, just seeing how it evolves over time.
Well, I know if it were up to me, and I'm a sucker, so I pretty much bought all the premium ships for the most part. And I don't know if you have or not, Zampy, but in hindsight, if I knew that the Flint was coming along, I probably wouldn't have bought the Atlanta recently.
The only premium I've bought was the Texas. All the others I've either won or managed to acquire somehow. I can understand the frustration at having a premium ship and having kind of a free version given out to it, but there's a lot of work that's put into the requirements to earning the Flint. I mean, you have to have ranked out in both Season 2 and Season 3 now. And then just going down the line, it seems like you have to rank out every 2 seasons in order to get a reward ship. I think that's a lot of time investment, especially if they're going to increase the number of wins to increase your rank. But maybe they should try to look at doing something a bit more unique than a premium that's already available.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, when you put it like that and the amount of time you put into this one versus, what you could do to get the Kamikaze R, which really wasn't all that much, that is a significant swing.
Yeah, Mouse actually posted a forum post about it and kind of explained, if you take a look at having to do it for 3 seasons and how many games it would take on average, I mean, you're probably going to put at least 100 hours worth of play, if not more, into getting this. And that's why I think that it's cool that it's going to be the Flint, because if it was an Atlanta, then there would be no coolness factor. Because okay, I'm gonna spend 150 hours to get a free Atlanta. I'd much rather just spend $40 if I wanted an Atlanta. But because it's a Flint, it kind of has bragging rights, because everybody who sees a Flint in game is going to know, hey, that's a guy who's a multiple rank 1 guy who got a free Flint, just like in World of Tanks when we got the M60 or the 7201, or the what was the other one? The Russian. There was a Russian tier 10 medium that they gave away too. I got it, but I haven't played World of Tanks in so long I can't remember. But those things are cool because, like, when I played my M60 in a random battle, hey, what's an M60? How'd you get that? It has that coolness factor. So I think the Flint will have that coolness factor, and I think that's kind of what sets it apart and makes it worth it to grind through to try to get.
I mean, they could have done it with any ship, right? Like, it didn't have to be an Atlanta clone.
No,
they could have given us, like, a sister ship of the Pensacola with a unique name, and that would have more or less garnered the same reaction. Like, hey, what's this, Northampton or whatever, or what have you.
Or the tone.
The Indianapolis.
Give
Now.
us
I mean,
the
it's just, yeah, or the
well,
tone.
they could have,
but
they
it's
could have
just,
flipped them, and they could have sold the Flint and given us an Indianapolis. The problem is they're already selling the Atlanta, and they're not selling a Pensacola clone. So what they did was they're selling the premium that is not available as a premium, and they're giving away a premium that they already are selling the sister premium. So it kind of makes sense from a financial standpoint. They're giving something away for free that is special that they're already selling in another form.
All right. Well, I suppose those are all fair points. While we got you here, Autism, what do you think the meta above 10 and below 10 is going to be? Anything different than what Zampy said?
No, I agree with Zampy. I mean, you're not changing tiers. If you were changing tiers at that rank, then I think it would change. I think you're going to see pretty much the same thing, because I do think cruisers are viable. I do think that having to push into a cap is a very tight area, and having a ship with hydroacoustic or a ship with radar or a ship that doesn't have either, but they just decide to charge in there after you is going to be scary. So I think people are going to play those cruisers for that reason. You're always going to have the battleships. You're always going to have the DDs. And I truly believe you're always going to have the cruisers, because there's going to be those cruiser players that are good at what they do, and they're not going to switch to DD or BB just because they feel they have to.
Except the Pensacola. I haven't seen one of those yet.
Yeah, that's true. I have not seen a single Pensacola. And
I have
think I've seen
briefly
one
seen.
York.
I have briefly seen 2 Pensacola's and 1 York. And the reason why I say briefly seen the Pensacola's is because they disappeared right off the bat. Like what holds in random battles still holds in ranked. As soon as a Pensacola shows up, every single gun loads AP and starts pointing at it.
The biggest problem with the Pensacola, besides the fact that it has no armor, is it has no armor and it has a huge surface detectability. Those two things put together, insta death.
So, what do you think about that flag that reduces the repair costs only being available while the season's active?
I don't think it has that much of an impact because at this tiers, the repair cost isn't that much. By the time you get the higher rank, I think it's down to 20%. I think it'll help some people. It's not going to be that much of an impact. I mean, it's like a freebie. Hey, here, this is kind of cool. I don't have to pay 20% of my repair cost. Personally, I would still want to run my Jolly Roger or the Memorial Month flag just for the bonus credits and XP.
Yeah,
well,
I run the
didn't see
Memorial flag. There's nothing better than the Memorial flag, at least
So I
based
haven't
on what
tried
I
it.
have.
I haven't tried it, but can you use it in a random battle? The minus 20% repair, or the -5 or whatever. Have you tried
We
it?
haven't been given them yet.
Yeah, we're not high enough, right?
I'm high
I think
enough.
you have.
You were supposed to get one at 15, but I don't have it.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like you can.
So I'm
looks
just
like
saying,
you
if you get to if you get to the minus 20% and then you rock that on some of your tier 10 random battle stuff, it might make it worth it. Just kind of wish you had that option to keep it. So if you rank out, you keep it and you have it going forward, and you can rock it on your tier 10s.
Actually, I just tried it right now. It does work. I do have it for being under 15. It does work, and it takes 5% off the cost. But when you compare that to your military month contributor, if you have the military month, I mean, wouldn't you rather have 5% more XP, 5% more credits, and 5% more commander XP rather than only 5% off of your repair cost on a tier 6 or a tier 7?
Sure, absolutely. But I'm talking minus 20% on a tier 10 in a random battle is huge. I mean, when they ran that in April, that made a huge difference to me.
Yeah, but that's going to be in randoms. And if you're playing ranked to try to rank out, how much time are you going to have to play randoms?
Well, I'm sure we're not going to rank out as quick as you two, but who knows? Who knows?
Well, and those flags are only available during the ranked season. As soon as the season's done, they're gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish if you rank out, you can keep it at least till the next season starts, and then they can change it around to something else. But instead of just for the duration.
I'll certainly be running the minus 20% repair cost flag on my 9s and 10s. But I will still be running the military month flag for any ships that I'm still trying to grind up for the experience.
Well, hopefully moving forward, maybe they'll offer, like the military month with the bonuses. They'll offer bonuses on like the Jolly Roger, because I love the Jolly Roger and I'd like to fly that flag.
Yes.
But it doesn't offer me anything.
Exactly.
Just let us fly more than one.
They could do that too. That's an option. But apparently, for some reason, they don't want to. I don't know why.
I mean, the only thing, and the other thing that for me that really, sort of bums me out is that the Jolly Roger flags, these flags, they're so small. Like, you just don't see them unless you're specifically looking at, like, the other guy's flags.
Well, what do you want? You want like
them?
a giant pirate ship sail, like the whole sail just flying above your ship?
I mean,
I want to fly a Corsair.
Have you seen some of the battle ensigns that they sometimes fly off, like the modern Navy, destroyers? Like, it's a huge American flag.
All right. Well, we'll ask you. Hey, man, give us giant flags. That's what we want. We want that more than anything else. Giant.
Or better
flags.
yet, just give us like a permanent rank camo that we can use across all ships. It just turns our ships into like black, and there's like a skull and crossbones somewhere painted prominently on the ship.
I agree. I would like that, and do that only until the next season of rank comes out, and then you use it.
One thing that's cool about this, though, about having the flag, and I didn't realize this because I never look at anybody else's flags, and I have no clue what's going on. But what's interesting is some of the players that tend to die earlier in the matches, if they decide to stick around, they usually watch the other players. And when you're watching the other player, you can see their whole ship, so you can see that flag. And I've had numerous people comment, "Hey, you're a rank 1 player, or you're a good player," and so like. They notice that, they see that, and so they watch watch you instead of watching somebody else because they think they might pick something up if they watch you. So it's kind of like an indicator to people, hey, this is a good guy. If you want to learn something, you might want to watch him.
Well, first of all, I don't want people watching me as I screw up in random battles as I go YOLOing into like the jaws of a battleship. And secondly, like for me, I guess this is like one of those like fancy things. Like I want the guy who's trying to shoot at me see the flag and realize that, oh shit, if I shoot this guy, I might be inviting divine retribution upon myself.
Hey,
A
I
dead
hate to
teammate
interrupt
watching
you guys,
me
but
doesn't mean nothing.
my time is up. I gotta head out. I appreciate
Hey,
you
congrats.
guys having me on
Tell your
here.
wife congrats too, buddy.
I will pass that along. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming and stopping by, Zampy.
Yeah, thanks for showing up.
All right, I'll see you all around.
Till next time.
All right, you were saying something about you want a giant target for people to aim at flying over your ship.
That's not what I said, but something like that. Something visible, basically. Plainly visible.
Drop dive bombers here.
Yeah, you put it on the top of one of the turrets you just painted on or something like that.
There you go.
All right, I mean, for me, it's early days in the rank season. I think we've kind of covered everything we wanted to talk about today, unless you guys had something that we didn't really touch on that was of particular interest to you.
I mean, I guess for autism, like, you seem to play a lot of, like, the mid-tier stuff, 5, 6, and 7s. Do you do it because you just, like the ships that you, or is it, something else?
Right now, it's more the meta and it's more the fun factor. Because the tier 10, when I tried to play tier 10s, like initially I busted my butt to get a Khabarovsk. I worked my way all the way up to get a Khabarovsk. It was my first tier 10. I actually free XP'd a bunch of stuff because I wanted to get there so badly to have a Khabarovsk and play tier 10. I actually played, early on, I divisioned with a couple of Yamatos with my Kiev. Like, that's how badly I wanted to play tier 10.
Goodness.
And I had one battle where I was fortunate enough to be number 1 in XP in a tier 10 battle in my Kiev. So I took a screenshot of that because I thought it was really cool. But I really wanted to play tier 10. I mean, I have 23 tier 10s in World of Tanks, and Clan Wars is all about tier 10, yada, yada, yada. So I wanted to be at the top. When I got there, I found myself playing in ridiculously imbalanced matchmaker. We played a lot of 7-on-7 battles that were, ridiculously, undermatched. A few times we played on like 2-on-3s. You'd have like a Shimakaze and a carrier versus our division or something like that. Like it was just terrible. So I played about 170 games or so in my Khabarovsk, and I got tired of it. And where I find fun in the game playing other stuff. So for the longest time, I stayed between tier 5 and tier 7. And I pretty much played all the time in 5 and 7. And then I kind of got a little bored with those ships and stuff. So I actually went down to the SEAL clubbing area. SEAL clubbed for a while, had some fun there. And now I'm back up. Like recently, the last couple of days, I've played nothing but the Tashkent. But I don't see the fun in tier 10 right now. I'm sure it'll get there, but I don't think it's there right now. So I'm going to, just hover around probably 6, 7, 8 right now. I'll play the ranked at 7, 6 and 7. And what I would love, and this is a big shout out just in case Q or Nico or anybody else is listening, give us clans. If you give us clans, that's the first step towards clan wars. And when we have clan wars, that is what makes tier 10 fun.
So you mentioned that, but there's a community run like clan tournament going on. Have you and your clan thought about joining up with like say the Supremacy League?
I'm not in a clan. I'm not doing anything right now.
Okay, so talk to me after the show about that. But go on.
Because I do know that Supremacy League's going on, and that's really cool and it's exciting. But it's also run out of a training room. It's not within game. You don't have clan tags. There's no doubloons to be won. There's no land to hold. There's no map to see like who is dominating. All of that stuff is the coolness. Like logging in and looking at the global map and seeing Poseidon Syndicate holding a big chunk of land and making 10,000 balloons a day as a clan. That's cool. That's something that is inspiring, that you want to do, that you want to be a part of.
Well,
Supremacy League is cool, and I'm not going to knock it.
In all fairness, they did just pony up rewards, a significant amount of rewards for the Supremacy League from Wargaming, which first place team's going to get 50,000 doubloons, second place team's going to get 30,000, and the third place team's going to get 20,000 to divvy up.
And in Wargaming typical fashion, this is something that after the fact has been told. Like, if in a marketing standpoint, they said ahead of time, if you participate in this, here are the rewards, that would have been cool. You know, coming after the fact, pretty much you had to sign up for free, and now you're going to find out you're getting paid. So,
well, I think it was more a function of the guys running the Supremacy League doing a great job lobbying and getting the message out that it was a thing, that there were a lot of people participating, more than it was Wargaming coming late to the table. I think it was more that they just didn't know it was really going on and that it was really a big deal. And so I think over the last month or two, they've done a great job of getting it out there.
Yeah, and I probably misspoke a little bit on that. Because that is, I mean, the guys who run the league, they do a phenomenal job, and it's a cool thing, and I'm glad that it's out there. But just for me personally, I'm a visual person. Like, one of the things that keeps me running in this game and keeps me excited about it is not the individual game wins. It's Warships Today. It's gone to Warships Today and seeing leaderboards and stats and stuff like that. That's what excites me. So it's online. People can go look at it. And I feel like until Wargaming does something like that is very visible, that the player base can go see and you can be acknowledged for that, it's not really something that I'm very interested in. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing, but it's just not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in Clan Wars. And I think because Wargaming has already been through that, they already know how to do that. They did it with World of Tanks, and they have been doing it for over 5 years. It should be a piece of cake for them to implement it. And it boggles my mind that to this point they have not.
I think you're voicing kind of the frustration that a lot of people have, but we also know it's not coming this year. That's for sure. So in the interim, we've got to find ways to make it through that. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how it turns out. I think this ranked battle season is going to help some, especially if they continue to build on it with the following seasons and they come quicker. Maybe not so much lag time in between. I think we had team battles as kind of an experiment in there. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how it turns out. I think near term, though, ranked battles and some more ship lines is about all we can kind of focus on.
Yeah, and they're doing a good job with things. I mean, I've heard that another Project R type thing is going to be coming out, which is cool. I thought Project R was phenomenal. I thought it was probably the best thing they ever did. So that's going to be cool. But one of the things that, once again, from a marketing standpoint, that I would gripe is back in February, we had 3 awesome contests running at one time. And I think Mesrith actually brought this up as far as timing on the forum. And he said, we had all this stuff running in February and everybody was excited and the population was up. And then from February to June, we have a lull of virtually nothing. And then June hits, and what do we get? We get rank battles, we get Arpeggio, and we get another Project R event, like all boom, right in at one time. It's like, why couldn't they have spread them out to keep people interested in the game over that time instead of allowing that lag where we may have lost several thousand players because they got bored?
Well, I'm not so sure. It stuff like that comes down to like man-hour workload, right? So I'm not so sure it's a 1-to-1 ratio of, hey, I can do this one and then I'll do this one and I'll do that one. Some of that stuff may have been, done in parallel because it's not the same people doing it. And so then the question would be, all right, well, we said we wanted it staggered out, and even though it's available earlier because of the lag, and maybe the lag isn't something you could get rid of based on how you're, divvying up your people to do work, do we then say, hey, don't give it to me all at once, hold on to it and give it to me in a month or two?
Well, no, but see, Cap, what you don't understand is it's not that stuff was in the works and like they needed the man hours to complete it. All the Arpeggio stuff was already done. It was already handed out to every other server months ago. If we would have been given it the same time they were, and it was already a finished product, then we could have been doing that through that time span, and everybody would have been happy. Not saying everybody. I mean, there's some people that do not like the arpeggio stuff. I personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I am a huge fan of free stuff. I mean, I love having a free Mayoko. I love having a free Congo. I also love the idea of the captain they're going to be giving away. The free 16-point captain is a huge thing. Why? Because once I get that 16-point captain, I have a 16-point captain to run in all the arpeggio ships now.
Yeah,
so
no,
I don't have
fair.
to grind one myself.
The art missions, that's probably fair. But again, I don't know how all the other stuff development cycle worked out, right? So I don't know. Maybe it's something we could put on the list to ask.
Yeah, I just think I don't want to be a critic. And believe me, if, like I said this earlier, if they make me mad or I don't like this game anymore, I'll just quit. It's not that I have to be here, just like nobody has to be here. But I enjoy the game and I want to see it be successful. And it just frustrates me when I see Wargaming doing stuff that I feel that they're shooting themselves in the foot. So my complaints are not, hey, I feel entitled, give me this, give me that, give me this. It's, I think if you marketed the game better and in a different way, it would be more successful. And currently, I like your game. I don't want to see it fail. So it frustrates me when I see you do things that I believe are causing it to fail.
Well, so were you in at the very beginning of World of Tanks when it first came out?
Not right at the very beginning, no. I joined AOD, which at the time was one of the top clans, right after they won the URL Still event. So it was, I believe it was in September of 2011, something like that.
No, I was just curious if you'd gotten in World of Tanks at the beginning, and then from closed beta to first Clan Wars, how long that cycle was. I'm gonna have to go look that up.
Yeah, it was much
very
quicker.
Curious.
It was much quicker. They actually had tournaments like the release. To give you an example, and we went over this on the forums. I think there was actually a thread on it. From the release of the game, which I believe was in March. I think it was either March or May, one of those M months. That was the release of the game. They had the URL Still event, which was a global event for World of Tanks in September of the same year. Clans were already in place. Like I said, I joined AOD at that time, and all the members that won the URL Still event were members of AOD, Angels of Death. And that was a situation that transpired within just a few months of open release. So we are further along from open release in World of Warships than that time period in World of Tanks, and they had already had a global live event, and they had clans in place, and they had clan wars. The only thing that we've had to rival that whatsoever was that they took two teams and put them together and played a celebrity death match at the World of Tanks event. It was a couple months ago when they had the grand finals.
Well, let me ask this then, right? And we've kind of derailed from ranked battles, and I think we'll kind of close it out here after this. But what was the population level when they did that, though, right? My guess is that it was significantly higher even before they had clan warfare than what we have seen or had in this game.
Actually, I can't quote you numbers, but what I can say is that the population was not extraordinary. I mean, the game grew over the first year, over the first 2 years, but you can't really compare. It's kind of apples and oranges if you compare the server population versus this population, because the clan wars was there, or even before it was there for the first month or two. I think it was a month to 2 months between actual release and when clans were actually running. And at that time, you even knew clans were coming. So a lot of people were interested in the game because of that aspect. So it drew more people. I can guarantee there would be more people over here playing right now if clans were in game, because I know people in Sturm Grenadiers. I know people in Dad's Hideout, For Him, a lot of different clans that participate in World of Tanks that would immediately come over here and participate if the clan aspect was available. But now it's just, hey, 2 or 3 guys in their team speak that say, hey, do you want a division and go play World of Warships? Yeah, sure. But the clan as a whole doesn't do anything over here because there isn't any clans over here.
Okay. I mean, I don't think there's a lot to disagree with there. I think there's some nuances, but I don't know. We'll just have to continue to try and ask the questions and see what kind of answers we get. I know they're really tight-lipped on giving us, when clan warfare is even on the calendar to come out, and I'm not even sure what the specific issues are surrounding it, but I don't know. It's something we'll keep working towards. You got anything,
Yeah.
Spectre?
I mean, it is disappointing to see that Clans is taking such a long time. I would like to give, Wargaming the benefit of the doubt and say that, the reason why it's not out yet is because they're working on a better system than what they had in Tanks. But, I mean, I know that, it's important for them to push out new ship lines and, improve the game, from like a technical standpoint. But, like Vermi just said, there's not a lot to disagree with what you just said there, Autism. I do think, clans are a big part of, why people play this game. People want to enjoy playing together with their friends. And, if Wargaming's listening, really, speed that up, because I feel like I just don't see any downside to adding this. It's like,
Well, I think there
no-brainer.
is a downside, Spectre, and I'll share that with you after we cut the podcast.
All right, folks. Then I guess we'll call it there. We've got a really tight week this week show wise, so we're gonna have probably one or two pretty quickly after this one since there was a little bit of a lag. But we'll call it there. I just want to say thanks again, Autism, and to Zampy who had to go early for his anniversary. I shouldn't say it's his wife's, but we really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us, man.
I really appreciate it, and I'm honored to be here. And I'll come back anytime you want me.
All right, and that's a wrap.